I saw a term sheet which said, like it was several years ago for female founder, that you will not get pregnant for next 5 years. And I'm like, really? I said the person who wrote this doesn't understand the psyche of a female founder. Building a startup, why we are building in the first place? We are building a better future for our children. We want a better retirement for our parents.
Now, the title of this episode is The 7 Secrets to a Successful Fundraise.
Yeah.
You had 7 that you were really wanted to share with us. Do you want to start with number 1? In today's episode, I'm joined by Sokhiba Mukhitdinova, one of the principal members of InsurTech Venture Capital, as well as a prolific angel investor right here in London. I first met Sokhiba exactly a year ago through a chance encounter at an accelerator where she actually decided to invest at us. So we're really excited to bring her on for her to share her 7 secrets to what makes a successful fundraise. Without further ado, let's get to the show. I'm your host, Arib Siddiqui, and this is Muscle Money Talk. Before we begin, we actually noticed only about 10% of you are subscribed to the podcast. So if you like what you're listening to and you want to hear more from us and see more things Muslim and money related, then please consider subscribing and of course leaving this episode a like and share it with your friends, leave us a comment or a review, because it really, really does help us out and help more people to find us. Thank you. Now back to the show. Sokhiba, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Alaikum assalam, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
You're, I think, our first shareholder, our first Kestrl shareholder who's actually been a guest on this podcast. And we've had a lot of guests, so that means a lot. So thank you so much. It was very last minute.
Yeah.
I think when you woke up this morning, you didn't think you'd be on a podcast.
No. But I knew I will be meeting one of my portfolio company founders.
Yes, well, thank you for doing us the honor and spending your time with us. There's a lot I want to ask you about your career, your background, how you ended up in VC, as well as, of course, the title of the episode, the secrets for a successful fundraise. But before all of that, was this what you wanted to do when you grew up? How did you find yourself in VC?
I was always good with numbers, and I was always good with money. I was counting money when I was 10 years old. I was able to count my father's salary and somehow allocate it. So
really?
I was 10 years old and I would be able to count full salary and saying like, why don't we put it this way, or why don't we spend it this way? So I kind of was always, as my father say, good with finances.
Yeah.
Yeah. So although I'm from my parents are from music. Let's say my father is a music teacher and our ancestors were musicians.
Really?
I'm fourth generation musician. So my great granddad was musician. My granddad was very famous musician.
Wow.
So, but I was always good with money. So my father was laughing that somebody needs to count the money we are earning.
What was it like growing up in Kazakhstan?
Well, I think I grew up I saw the transition from Kazakhstan being part of Soviet Union.
Oh, really? Okay.
To becoming an independent country, and I saw this kind of transition.
Wow. And what was the biggest change there? Did you see a sense of freedom coming about so that people feel like they were reclaiming their identity?
Yeah, but also it was it was also a very difficult time because they kind of lost, there was a transition which was kind of, you wake up tomorrow, it's independent country, but the currency changed and everything was changed. So there was a lot of fear and anxiety, and the job changes and the government changes. But I think our parents did their best to give us an education and to give us a happy childhood, as all our parents do. They do their best, right?
Is that what pushed you to seek a career in the UK?
In my case, my parents always believe in education, so they wanted to give us the best education. So initially I started working in the bank in Kazakhstan.
Oh, no way, okay.
Without having a full-time degree, they had an apprentice program where you join after school.
Yeah.
So I passed that one because I was good with numbers. And I passed their IQ test, so I joined in a very, the bottom of the career in the banking. And then after 5 or 6 years working in the bank, I wanted to upgrade, and then I studied in university part-time, or let's say open university. And then I always wanted to have this experience of studying abroad. So I saved up. My father was selling his car to afford my education. We had my uncle selling his sheep to give money, to contribute money for me. So every entire family was contributing. And I remember there was a neighbor who came and she gave me a new towel. She said, I don't have a money, but please at least, so the entire community was just so happy that I will be going and studying abroad.
So it was so uncommon at
Yeah.
that time that everyone came together.
It was common for, let's say, but it was very expensive. You can imagine the salaries
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my
yeah.
father's salary was enough for Oyster card in London.
Whoa.
That's how correlation is.
That must have been incredibly humbling
Yeah.
for you to see all of these people, friends, family, neighbors coming together just to send you away
Yeah.
to a foreign country. I can't imagine how that feels.
Yeah, and my father's friends were trying to get together to buy me a plane ticket.
Wow.
So they were so like wanted to help their friends. So they were like friends getting together.
Was it quite a culture clash coming to the UK then? Because, well, maybe not other parts of the UK, but London in particular?
Because I was joining a master degree, I was studying my MBA in finance. The entire class was very international. So everyone was coming from different parts of the world. There were people coming from Europe, from Africa, from India, and also from, let's say, Soviet Union countries. So because we kind of, let's say, I joined in the university, it was slightly softer entry rather than just moving.
Yeah, straight there. Which university was it?
I did in London Metropolitan.
Okay.
The one we could afford.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there you go.
But I did my degree. I met some incredible friends with whom I'm still friends today.
Amazing. Yeah. And you decided to stay in banking after that?
In my case, I was one of the, I would say, lucky ones that I got a graduate program.
Okay.
In let's say in banking.
Yeah.
And then I continued staying there.
Was it hard for you? Was that always the plan, that you wanted to not just study in the UK, but then start earning in the UK?
No, that was not an original plan. But then, sometimes you need to follow the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your family feel about that?
Initially, I thought that I will study and then come back.
Yeah.
And then I thought I would work a few years and then come back. But then after 3-4 years, I realized I would like to stay.
Yeah. But was that difficult for everyone back home? Being like, okay, she's maybe they were thinking you'd come back. I don't know, it's different. I guess in like Pakistani culture, like my background, there's like an expectation that one day you will
come back.
Yeah, you'll come back.
And my father was saying that he see me being happy, so he say, I would like you to see on Skype and with shining eyes, rather bringing you back, and then I could see you unhappy, and then I will feel bad that I was the reason for that unhappiness.
Yeah.
So actually my family was slightly different. They were always supportive. Actually in Kazakhstan, sending daughter alone to study abroad is a nonsense.
Wow.
Yeah. So my father was kind of always allowing us to make our choices and our mistakes.
Did you have lots of brothers and sisters?
I have a brother and sister, but they live in Kazakhstan.
They live in Kazakhstan, okay. So that's a huge deal. Big testament to your parents, to your father in particular, for allowing that. And then you continued your career in banking.
Yes.
How did you move into venture capital?
Well, in my case, one of my classmates, who I'm still in touch with some of my classmates, he was, after MBA, he was building his own, let's say, startup. Yeah. So it's back in 2016, 17, yeah. And then first round he was fundraising. He is from engineering, let's say, software developer background. He started receiving some investor questions which he didn't know how to respond, and so he reached out. And when I was like, I understand the questions and I kind of know how to respond, but I need to speak with a couple of people. And from events, let's say I was attending, I knew a couple of people who were angel investor, professional ones, and there is even like the big names. So I reached out to one or two. So one said, send over the startup to me and I will speak with him. Another one actually paid attention, had a call with me, explained how it works. And then he said, okay, I will send you a link to an event which is tomorrow. You should go and you will see yourself what it is about. It will give you a bit more understanding. And when I went to that first event, it was all I would say, men in their good 60s.
Really?
I was the youngest one. And
What field was the startup in? That they were they in fintech?
no, the startup was, I think, they were tackling something related to health
Okay.
data.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he was working for a startup, and he was if I'm not mistaken, like some head of development.
Right.
So they were like 3 co-founders, one from health, one from development. And then I went to this event with pitching, and I felt so home. Like, this is mine. This is first time I'm listening, and people are pitching, and I felt so home. I came home and I say, I want to be part of that.
Really?
This is like, I felt like, when you find your niche,
Yeah.
that's how I felt.
What were the questions that your friend couldn't answer that you wanted to reach out to you? Were they all financial
All
modeling
financial,
questions?
yes.
Okay, okay, tell me your cap table, what your financial forecasts are.
Forecast. It was related to forecast. They
Okay.
couldn't figure out, this kind of really technical financial questions.
Yeah.
And then from then on, at that time, I see clearly that some startups were better at pitching. However, what they were building was average, while some startups, especially female founders, they were too shy to pitch, while they were building very interesting thing. So I started, after the event or during the coffee, I started basically a little bit of coaching them, because I said, oh, if you do this, if you do this. So I started having friends and all these female founders. And then, of course, I was also reading a lot of books and anything I could get hands on about angel investing. While I was not investing myself, I was mentoring female founders, right? So free of charge, nothing attached. Then I started getting some PhD students building some really interesting things. And I continue attending these angel events.
Whilst you were working at the bank?
Yes, yes. I worked while, and then I started doing angel investments.
Okay.
And I think my first angel ticket was in 2018.
2018. Gosh, and it's supposed to be non-stop still since then.
Yes.
As an angel, but then also part of some syndicates as well.
I was part of the syndicate, and I'm still part of 4 syndicates today.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you want to become an angel investor, the first thing you do, you join an angel syndicate, because there will be people who are doing this for 10, 15 years. And even you will be new to this, based on other people's knowledge and expertise, you will be feeling more comfortable doing angel tickets.
Okay.
But I should be mentioning, it's very high risk.
Angel investing, because you're coming in earlier.
Yeah, it's 90% of startups fail.
Really?
So angel investing is a very high risk. It should not be like that's why UK puts some certain regulatory requirements.
So that's why there are regulatory requirements that are there to protect.
Yeah.
To protect you guys as angels, effectively, or
no, there is a lot of initiatives to support angel investing, and let's say it's called EIS programs, right? Which are like tax incentives, as well as which is only in UK. Like, there is nowhere else in Europe they have
that does anything
such
like that.
Wonderful tax incentives, and I think that was a backbone of UK being still number 1 in terms of.
It was incredible. Like, when we first started Kestrl, we found out about the SEIS and then the EIS tax breaks. For people who don't know, if you have a startup and you can fit into it, absolutely apply for those things, because it gives incredible tax breaks to your angel investors. And even in the event that your startup doesn't succeed, people can also claim some money back, in some cases up to 50% for SEIS, in some cases up to 30% for EIS. So it's just like a no-brainer for an angel investor, and really encourages an angel investor to invest into your startup. That's how we raised our first pre-seed round.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think that's why when people say, what's the secret behind the success of UK becoming this international hub for startups? The money-wise, how much money was raised in UK, and let's say the next one is, let's say, Paris or France or Germany. Like in 2023, I didn't see the number for 20, but 2023, UK was really far behind, 20 plus billion, while the Germany and France were in 10 billions. So there is a huge gap. Why? It's because there is this incentives supporting angels to invest in startups.
Do you think the UK is still a good place to found a startup?
There is a big pool of talent. We have all these major universities. We're talking about Imperial, we're talking about Cambridge, we're talking about Oxford, which has this amazing facilities to research, especially if we're talking about specialized startups which are building anything to do with health, with like something niche. Like climate has a lot of people who are graduates from, let's say, Imperial.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
But even with the capital gains tax has gone up now in this country, I've had friends who were looking to exit their companies, so they went to resettle in Dubai or Saudi, or in some cases even America, just because it wasn't as lucrative anymore to be an exited founder in this country. Do you see that at all with your portfolio companies?
I would be very honest, I don't have an exit yet.
Okay.
Because I think until I become full-time in this world, I was very safe. I was investing very safely. Like my tickets were small and I didn't know I was still trying to figure out what I was doing. I think my pick-up momentum was during COVID.
So what's your advice to people who want to become angel investors? Because you've been very specific with the types of companies in your portfolio. Is it a case of invest in what you know?
Yeah. So while I was still in the banking, I went to an investment seminar by Mary Buffett, for example, the daughter-in-law of Warren Buffett, Robert Kiyosaki, you name them, like the biggest investors. I was trying to learn about it. And that's what I understood, because then you become a smart capital. But in my case, initially, I didn't know that. So I just joined an angel syndicate. I was attending these events. And then somebody said, I could see clearly that you're too interested, like you have a lot of passion. Let me put some, let's say, guidelines to make sure you don't burn your hands too early. So the man was a super angel, as we call it, like he had massive portfolio. So he saw me being very good with numbers and cash flows. So he would sometimes share some of these deals. While he was, let's say, from business background, and he would wanted my independent opinion. So I would sit down and review the numbers of the startup he wanted to invest. In return, he was coaching me, like he was mentoring me in angel investing. So it was his idea. He said, you should focus on fintech because you work in the bank, you know all the solutions you are using. You can check out the prices of the solutions the bank is using from your IT team. And you will know what people are building. Okay. So he was saying fintech, but then I was also mentoring a lot of female founders, right? So I wanted that my investments will make a difference. And he was saying, okay, but it should be 50-50. Like, so impact investment and fintech should be in equal, like if one of each.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in my case, my impact went into climate.
So that's why you have a lot of climate tech type companies in your portfolio.
Yeah. Although I'm still having a lot of female founders, diverse founders, I would say them.
Are we your first Islamic fintech?
Yes.
There we go. Alhamdulillah. Now, the title of this episode is The 7 Secrets to a Successful Fundraise.
Yeah.
You had 7 that you were really wanting to share with us. Do you want to start with number 1?
Yes. So everywhere I go, I'm a member of several syndicates. I'm attending a lot of, I transition now to full-time being a VC. And I'm still, when I meet these people who did super big exits, successful, like I was attending an event by an angel investor who invested in 7 unicorns.
Wow.
Like we're talking about big.
An angel who did that?
An angel ticket, 7 unicorns. And I said, what is one thing you're looking in startup founder? He said, laser focus. Okay? He was saying, I'm only investing in founders who are laser focused on their business, on their progress, on their traction. If I see, and he said, of course, he receives a lot of cold and everyone wants to get his ticket. He said, if I see that they do have several businesses or he was saying that I will not invest in them. So, and he has, if I'm not mistaken, he was sharing that in the term sheet, they have that the founder should be focused 80% of his time on this particular startup.
80% of his his or her professional time?
Yeah.
And what would the rest be open to?
But at least 80%.
At least 80. Okay, so basically you're looking for someone who's full-time or close to full-time.
Yeah.
On their startup as opposed to building something alongside.
Yes.
They're doing. And I guess the focus there is if this is your only source of income, if you are almost dying to make this work.
Yeah. Also, like, of course, we understand that actually building a startup from scratch is a very, very difficult, especially if you have a family,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's
sure.
difficult if the family is there.
Yeah.
So before, and this is my second secret, before actually going to your startup full time, you should do it as a side hustle. Without registering company, without but you should spend your weekends, you should start reading about it. Maybe you're not fully building it, but you are reading about building the niche you are building before you fully commit to your startup. And the second thing is you should have at least 6 to 12 months personal savings before you start anything.
So that, from an investor perspective, would you expect someone to be doing it as a side hustle before? Is that like a plus as an investor, that someone's been doing it as a side hustle, they have 6 to 12 months savings, and now they've decided to take the next step? Because with us, when we started with our pre-seed round, I was working at PwC and consulting. My co-founder dying, we just graduated from the MBA, so he was full-time on it. We needed that pre-seed round to start going full-time. But I was still kind of the 80-20, sorry PwC, 80-20, I was still 80% focused on Kestrl.
Yeah.
But so even if it is your side hustle, you want to know that you're obsessed with your side hustle.
Yeah. And of course, that's the most difficult part. That's get that early money. But again, there is something called FFF round, which is like friends, family, and fools. And so this initial support will come from your direct network.
Right, okay.
And the people who, and that's why I'm saying, like, you should also, that's one of the, okay, so this is actually was my last secret, but let's put it now. You should seek for smart capital.
What do you mean by smart capital?
It's usually, let's say, people who are in your network, possibly work network, who have, let's say, 10, 15,000 to invest, but they know your capacities, they know your work. Okay, they know your
they know you
they
as
know
an individual,
and they know that you will get it, you will figure it out.
Thank you for listening to Muslim Money Talk. If you like what you've heard so far, you might be interested in checking out what we do at Kestrl, the Muslim Money app. Kestrl is a service that helps Muslims who want to grow their wealth without having to compromise, whether it's on their belief or user experience or price. I founded Kestrl because of how fed up I was at how poor Islamic financial services were in this country. Often people didn't use them because of how bad the user experience or customer service, and indeed how high on price they were. So Kestrl was the answer to that. If you download the Kestrl app today, it can help you by creating a budgeting plan. Plug in whatever bank account you have and it will create a auto budget just for you. You can then tell us what goals you're saving for and we'll save towards them automatically into pots, and then crucially link you towards Sharia compliant investment and savings products as well. So download Kestrl today and try it out for yourself. Now back to the podcast. It's quite a scary thing, because we did a friends and family round, and it's kind of like, okay, if you were to take VC money and it didn't work out, it's okay.
They're professionals.
Yeah, but if you take your friends and your families and it doesn't work out, then you feel like you've let all these people down, and it's your own personal reputation which is on the line there.
Yeah.
So it can be really nerve-wracking in that way.
And that's why I think, again, secret number 3 is bootstrapping, and as far as you can get, so you have some traction. Because once you get to, let's say, first 2 paying customers, then that's when the angel investors come.
So try and get to revenue.
Trying to get to this
as much as you can.
Like MVP to a revenue. Even if you have 2 customers paying, that's where the angel investments come. And with angel investors, of course, you will be initially targeting individuals. You should target individuals who understand what you are building.
Subject matter experts.
Subject matter experts who do care about what you're building. And also, you should target angel syndicates. Instead of pitching one by one, you should target angel syndicates.
Okay, so just to recap what we talked about so far. Number 1, maintain laser focus. Number 2, begin as a side hustle before going full-time on it. Number 3, seek out smart capital. people within your network. Number 4, Bootstrap. And Bootstrap until you can start generating revenue.
And then again, we are back to UK. UK has a wonderful program called UK Innovate. Yeah. And they have different programs for different startups, which allows you to get some grants depending on the startup. Let's say major causes like cancer treatments, they could get a bigger grant because they require a bit more money to do development and research.
Smart grants through UK Innovate. And that's really a really interesting form of, I guess, fundraising. But you're raising money without giving away equity or giving away parts of your business.
Yeah, and another secret is actually applying for startup pitch competitions.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who follows me on LinkedIn has probably seen me holding a few giant checks, but that's good in a couple of ways because it is equity-free money.
Also gives you visibility.
Visibility, that's the other thing. So with us on the B2B side of our business, we build a lot of software for major Islamic banks. That was amazing B2B visibility for us. We did that in Pakistan, in Saudi, here in the UK.
Because people who are attending the start, let's say the judges who are reviewing the pitches, they are not there because they have nothing else to do, but they are seeking for the next big thing.
Yes.
And then also people who are sitting in the audience, you never know, like how we met, for example, you never know who is sitting in the audience. Maybe there is an innovator, like head of innovation in a major bank.
We should probably share the story of how we met.
Yeah.
Actually. So Kestrl was part of Barclays Rise Accelerator, and we used to work from the Barclays Rise office here in Shoreditch, in London, in East London. And we just held a board meeting almost exactly a year ago. And it was us and one of the members of one of our board advisors, Salim Chowdhury, who I think was episode number 3 or 4 on the podcast. I tell he was one of our other shareholders who'd been on the podcast before, but Salim was there and he was really giving us a hard time about, look, we need to be driving for growth at all costs. We need to be getting more and more revenue. Let's get some more banks. Let's do this and this and this. And we were sat downstairs in the shared workspace and you happened to be sat on the table with us, overhearing our conversation.
No, I didn't overhear it, but I think I saw that there was a big discussion about the bank and fintech, so I realized you were a fintech.
Yes.
While I was sitting, let's say, on the other side, and then I went for coffee, and you came to have a water.
Yes.
And then I say, wait, where do you guys have a cups here?
Yes.
Because I was not part of Barclays Rise, so
very good memory. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
and then you said, oh, here it is, and this is a coffee, and this is how machine works. So, and then what was I asked? I say, what are you building?
Yes, what am I building?
Yeah.
And then I had my 30-second Kestrl elevator pitch, where Kestrl, Muslim money app, helping Muslims grow their wealth without compromise. We have a consumer app in the UK, but we also do B2B software services for major Islamic banks.
And I think, and then...
The rest is history. There we go. But I remember one of the first things that you said to me, though. The first thing was, you need to be looking at smart capital. That was one of the first big pieces of advice that you gave. The second thing which you spoke to us about was, how do we stay as lean as possible?
Yeah.
For as long
and
as
this
possible.
is, so how we have how many secrets now? 4, right?
So far we have 5. So just to recap, be laser focused, start as a side hustle, smart capital is number 3. Number 4, bootstrap until you're revenue generating.
And grants, yeah.
Yeah. Number 5, smart grants in competitions, or is that?
Oh, 4? It was part of the.
That's part 4. Okay, we'll keep that part 4. So now we're on 5.
Critical thing, and this is like, one of the founders. I know that there is not much money available, so stay lean as much as possible, because you can. The further you are with your bootstrapping, ideally, if you get to revenue, the higher is your valuation, and you will be more attractive for investors. And they will also check your time from establishing to get to first revenue. So
in a world where people are writing checks for anyone who's doing a generative AI type startup, and there's a lot of, I guess, easy money going in Silicon Valley or in other parts of the world, is it still easy or viable to stay lean and stay bootstrapping in that way? Or how do you, I don't know, if you have a good product and you have VCs approaching you, it can be quite hard to say no to those people.
You should select your VCs.
Okay.
You should, for example, one of the VCs should be segment focus. So in this case, it should be a fintech focus VC, because it gives a comfort to VCs which are generalists, that if there is a specific VC, specialized VC, it gives them a comfort that maybe we don't understand what they're building, but I think these guys are specialists. And to anyone who didn't read the book called Bad Blood, you should read about the book called Bad Blood by John Carew about the Theranos.
Oh, yes.
And
okay.
it
Elizabeth
has
Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes. And I'm not suggesting to do the similar thing. But for all of my startup founders, I think it's the biggest read about how to build a board, about fundraising. Unfortunately, the mistake there, she received a lot of money from family offices. But so we were doing it as part of our cap table exercise at once. She didn't have any health tech or biotech VCs who are specialist investing. So most of her money was from family offices.
That's crazy. She was able to. How much did she raise in the end?
I think it was around 600 or 700 million.
600 or 700 million, including people like Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Who came in and invested.
Yeah.
And no
Robert
one.
Murdoch and
and no one looked under the hood to say that this technology is impossible. And this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because it will be able, like if there is a health tech VC who is specialist. So I'm not suggesting, but one of the ways is that if you have a lot of VCs approaching you, you should select a VC which does follow on, like for your next fundraising.
Yes.
Which is a specialist. And then, like for example, the last thing, which is a bit on the spiritual part, when you are selecting your investor, you should listen how do you feel with them, because you are selecting a partner for next 10 years.
What are some of the worst examples you've seen where someone has not assessed their VCs properly?
I have seen many things, and unfortunately, I have seen a girl, like female founders is kind of a lot of people come to me and I never say no. I saw her cap table, I say, you are uninvestable. Because when she started building, it was so exciting. It was very beautiful what she was building. And a big, if I'm not mistaken, family office gave her a big check, for 50% of her cap table. We are talking about first-time founders.
So she immediately lost control.
Exactly. And basically there was not much left for she is building, but there is not much left. And now who has a power? This big family office. So I always suggest stay lean, do not over fundraise. Like, do you really need this much? Maybe you need twice less if you will be lean and creative. There are so many creative ways of building it out.
Yeah.
And I know it's very big to fundraise from VCs but you don't have to. There are so many businesses which like bootstrap to revenue, and once you got to revenue technically, but there will be a moment, and like there is a gold opportunity when you say you receive a big contract and for that expansion, like your pot will be too small to cook this big fish. And that's the momentum when you need to actually fundraise.
I mean, this is very timely because with our conversation over coffee, you basically did the same thing. We told you about some of our plans and you were like, do you really need to do this? You really need this much?
And that's I'm honest. And like, for example, one of the worst cases, I saw a term sheet which said, like it was several years ago for female founder, that you will not get pregnant for next 5 years. And I'm like, really? I said, the person who wrote this doesn't understand the psyche of a female founder.
What would happen if she got pregnant? They'd claw the money back, or she'd lose the company.
But I was like, you should not accept this because, I mean, building a startup, why we are building in the first place? We are building we want a better future for our children. We want a better retirement for our parents. There is a big why inside of us which drives us through. Startup building is a very lonely journey and it's very difficult. And if there is no big why which drives you forward, so you should see how single mothers work sometimes. They do midnights and 6 o'clock because there is,
when the kids are asleep.
Yeah. So, and I was saying, like, the person who wrote this, but then I had cases when people turned down the term sheets if they were too aggressive terms.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I said, you did the right thing. And then interestingly, like recently, the founder turned down the term sheet from big name because they thought something is off. He said, I don't know, but I feel I should not accept it. And I suggested him to go with a gut.
Really? That gut feeling that still counts. It's crazy because you can be dealing with huge amounts of money here and something just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And you should follow your intuition, because your intuition will always know what's best for you.
Yeah. Life-changing decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that was number 5. Stay
yeah.
lean as long as you can. And
Yeah.
it's okay to say no to money.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Number 6?
Number 6, again, especially at early days, we are talking about a team. So at the pre-seed level, it's all about the founding team. Okay? And even at the seed stage, even at the Series A, it's all about the team. So I know it's difficult to find a team when you're limited in resources. But then you should learn to build that vision, like what you're building, how it will impact society, right? Like we eventually want to leave a legacy that what we are building somehow will improve society, right? Like somehow will make it better place. And finding these A players is a very, very difficult. And I always say one of the most important decisions is recruiting. And unfortunately, founders don't spend enough time with recruiting. Because if you recruit well at the founding level, your startup will go ahead fast.
What should founders look for when you say recruiting, do you mean looking for a co-founder, or do you mean looking for like a head of business development, or?
It depends. So let's say if you're a single founder and you have your specialty, you can only be good at let's say 1 or 2 things, right? So you clearly see that building this tech through consultancy will be too expensive. Then sometimes I suggest joining an accelerator, right? Because at accelerator, maybe there is somebody. If you are building, let's say in fintech, then try to find a fintech accelerator. If you are building something, if I'm not mistaken, there is a YC co-founding meetup or something.
There is, yeah, YC Startup School.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's online. I know a few friends who've met their co-founders through that.
Yeah, actually. And I know some people who met through that.
Yeah.
Sometimes possibly co-founder will be sitting in another accelerator trying to that's why I always suggest joining an accelerator.
Yeah, no, for sure. We went through Techstars.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that we got out of Techstars London was just immediately we were in an environment surrounded by other high-powered, highly competitive founders. We were the only fintech there, but it really kept us on our toes. Like, okay, someone got a term sheet. Okay, let's try and get a term sheet.
Tribe, right? The vibe of the tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the vibe of the tribe, like because it's a vibration that everybody is kind of you're trying to, because everybody is building and you're kind of trying to not to miss out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I suggest to join accelerator.
Definitely.
But sometimes I suggest not to join if I see clearly that they are too far on their journey. So it depends on where you are.
How do you feel about Y Combinator in that case? Because I've got friends who are looking at YC. Some of them are a bit far on their journey. Some of them have hit 1 million in recurring revenue. And when they speak to accelerators like YC who have big brand names, they say, you should still come and join. We can still help accelerate you. The brand in itself is so valuable. It's going to help you later on. How do you feel about that?
I guess it depends on what you're building, right? And whether, especially if you're expanding, I guess all the startups have in mind expansion to US because that's where the exits are, right? That's where the big rounds are, because unfortunately in Europe, one of the problems is growth stage money, like the Series B and onwards usually comes from Silicon Valley or let's say US VCs. So if you have this kind of expansion plans, if what you're building is scalable and it will be easy to scale into US, then they should definitely consider joining a Y Combinator, because again, the power of their network and the investors and the support they could get from the founder community there, because some of the founders are already built a unicorn. So you can, I guess it's all about community. And that's my last secret, is whatever you are building, you should have these early customers. The earlier you start having the list of customers, early adopters, community, who you can, let's say, test case your product. So they will know it can be your friends, it can be university friends, it can be a group from the gym, like however big is your community related to what you're building. I'm sure you can relate to that. You have one of the biggest communities for fintech. It's kind of you connect with them. So let's say you are starting with beta version, but you should somehow test it, no?
I think in Islamic fintech in particular, we've seen a lot of people make mistakes on that side in identifying who their real early adopter market is. So, for example, we saw a digital bank launch, I think 4 or 5 years ago when we were starting up. And they just thought, okay, we're going to go down to every mosque in the country and we're going to present them with this card and people are just going to eat it up. Not realizing that they were almost the hardest market to capture because they'd been burned before by other banks and they needed a lot of education to bridge that marketing gap.
The customers were not ready yet.
Yeah, they weren't ready yet. Whereas if they had gone to, I don't know, I'm part of a big WhatsApp group called the London Muslim Tech Bros group. Shout out to anyone listening. And part of the reason we started this podcast is our early adopters, the people who really, really champion us, are likely to be the ones listening and tuning in and checking out that long form content there. So I couldn't agree with you more. Because I think a lot of startups fail by not actually knowing who their first customers truly are.
Yeah. And I agree with you because, so for example, like whatever you're building, you should have at least 200 people who would be beta testing, because if you build and then you start building community, it will be already too late. And I have seen that a lot. Okay, so what happened, there was a case of female founder. She was building a fintech education. In some countries it requires license. So instead of starting, like, investment topic is still a heavily regulated topic because you don't suggest people investing unless they have, like, even with angel investing, there is a lot of clauses and regulatory. So, but I was like, the problem was she spent a lot of time, I think she spent 3 years trying to get a license and a lot of money on the specialist consultants who are this kind of banking lawyers to get a license. The time she got a license, she had no community.
Because she spent all of her time just in the legalities. Trying to get that.
And so she got it, and now she needs to build up that community. Well, it should have been
the other way around.
So you start with teaching people the basics, whatever is without regulatory approval. Having that community, being honest with them that, we don't have a license, blah, blah, blah. And then, when you have a community of, let's say, 50,000 or 10,000 people, then you start applying to provide them some sort of financing.
When I think about community building in fintech and the people who did it best, probably the OGs were Monzo when they were coming about, right? Because they were just thinking, okay, we could go down the longest route possible and take 2 years or more to get a whole banking license and spend millions of pounds to do it. Or we could try and get the quickest route to market possible. And now everyone does it when they want to launch a digital bank, which is they use prepaid cards or e-wallets. But Monzo were the first ones to do that, thinking, let's just get cards out in people's hands. Before then, it had really only been used for children. At that point, just like to help them spend and save. But Monzo were like, let's get cards in people's hands, get a beta app out on test.
And then you see all these orange cards with Monzo, and people started checking it out.
And that was like the real product-led growth. That was the growth loop that they created, is that people saw the cards and they gave them an experience to talk about and to share and say, like, listen, I've got this app, it's giving me this cool card and it's doing stuff that no other bank that is out there right now is doing. I can split my payments, I can put stuff into savings pots, I can send money through like a WhatsApp link or something to someone.
So it's seasonality. So fundraising has seasonality. So when you're building your startup, and that's why I say do not rush to establish a company, do not rush to leave your job, because fundraising has seasons. Fundraising has like tough times. Last year, let's say 2023, 2024 was really tough to fundraise. Okay, the valuations were lower, and it was difficult because people were more conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been in a high interest environment for the longest time. It's not been as beneficial for VCs and investors in general to take risks. I've seen a trend, and sorry, we put a call out for questions for you, and this is one of the questions I'm jumping in now. There's been a trend that some people have spotted and other people have talked about, that in this high interest environment, people are going for less risky type businesses, B2B, like those who are servicing other businesses, as opposed to direct to consumer.
Let me put one step behind,
back.
Right? So anyone who wants to become an angel investor, there is a secret number 2. So firstly, invest in what you know and what you understand. In sector, you have worked at least 10 years, so you have this kind of niche expertise. Because what is smart capital? What angel investor does, apart from capital? Helping you to fundraise and get ready for your next round. Helping you to, let's say, put structure in the house. Helping you to open the doors to clients. Let's say if the person is smart capital, has a lot of network in the area of what you're building, then the good angel will be also helping you to get these contracts, the early pilots, or opening doors. Also help you to with recruiting relevant experts in whatever field you're building. The second thing I wanted to mention is, so invest in what you know. The second thing, and this is what I learned from the super angel, he said, and that's why my name become a Chanel bags. He said, what is your most expensive item you spend on yourself? Very simple, Chanel bag. He said, maximum 2 Chanel bags. So your investment ticket should be, of course, apart from your house and the car, let's say, for example, a holiday. So how much you spend on holiday, it should be maximum 2 holidays.
Okay.
And he was saying, let's say you lose your bag, and he said, you will cry for 2 years. For 2 weeks, sorry. But you will not die because of that, because, So I suggest, because it's very high risk, it's called alternative investments, it should be only out of all money available for you to invest. Let's say you should not invest all savings into this. Out of all the money available, 90% should be in the safe areas, investment savings, bonds, and and only 5 to 10% of your total capital should be allocated to startups, and even that one you should do with a good care. Okay, and but if you are expert, you know the trends.
Yeah, so it's basically, okay, look, divide your capital, reserve 10% of it for alternatives, in this case startups, but even then focus on what you know in your industry. In your case, it was fintech and banking, but you also reserved a little bit for stuff that you really wanted to focus on, female founders, climate tech.
Yes, and so that's why my capital was small, right? Because I didn't have much to invest. And that's why one of the secrets to become an angel investor is joining Syndicate. Yeah, so because you're
moving with other people. And you can gain their expertise.
Yeah.
In that way. Okay, fantastic. So back to this question from one of our avid listeners. Is it still possible to do a successful fundraise for a B2C?
It depends on what you are building. Okay. Yeah, and again, let's say you are building some sort of consumer goods. Yeah, first and foremost is what is called distribution strategy. It takes a lot of money on marketing to build it, let's say, from scratch, B2C product, because you need to spend a lot on marketing, on content creation, it takes a lot of time. But if you build it correctly, if B2B2C, so the end consumer is a normal person, but you build it through distribution. There is someone who has that community. Let's say gym. You're selling a item for gym, and you have this big contract with one of the big names for gyms, and they have a lot, and they will put it on all the gyms or all yoga centers. That is a nice strategy.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? You get to direct consumer, but you're not selling it one by one.
So with B2C, as an angel investor, the main thing you're looking at is your distribution channel. That's your main differentiator.
Distribution channel, what they're building, and I think, distribution channel. And second thing is unit economics.
Yes.
What are the margins? Because I have seen some things was like, really, like person was paying €8 to buy and let's say to final product, and she was selling for 40. I was like, I love the margins.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of fintechs, especially digital banks, fail. The unit economics never work. And a lot of them say, well, we're just going to keep on fundraising. You can't really fundraise yourself out of that hole anymore, especially in today's environment. Yeah. Okay, so that was question number 1. Number 2, what are the pros and cons of raising from a VC versus from angels? And would you recommend one over the other?
I would say depends on stage. So initial, the pre-seed is most likely, like, it's interesting that angel investor usually invest in the locals. Like, there is a big success case, and I have so much respect for men. His name is Peter Crowley. He recently passed away. May he rest in peace. He built a Cambridge angel syndicate related in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And he was investing only in Cambridge. Okay, so
did he create the Cambridge Angel?
Exactly.
No, no way.
Yeah. So
did he pass away recently?
Yes, he passed away from stage 4 cancer, and I have
my God.
so much respect for him because reading his book it's called Invested Investor, was one of first books I read on angel investing.
Really?
Yeah. So he was investing locally. He was investing, and of course his contribution to UK was major. But he invested only in local businesses. So your first round will come from local networks, local people, people who understand what you're building, local syndicates. If you are part of university, possibly your university has a little angel network. For the first pre-seed round, it's usually angels who take the risk.
Yes.
And once you get to seed round, sometimes there are angels who are slightly more conservative. They would like to see you a bit more growing.
Yeah.
But the earlier you start talking with angels, the better. Just for feedback. You don't ask for money. You say, can you give me opinion on how much is the valuation, what I'm building, blah, blah, blah. And then you start building a relationship. So certain angels are a bit late angels, as we call them. They are not professionally, they are not doing it full time. It takes time for them to make that decision. Okay, so for seed round, it's usually a mix of both. However, now the VCs seeing this trend, there are certain VCs who are pre-seed VCs, so they actually enter at CIS stage. Okay, so sometimes
there's SCIS specific VCs that are out there these days. Yeah. You just want to take up the full
mix of both. So you should select a VC who knows what you're building, who is supportive, what value they could add. And then, if they are, let's say, sector specialist, they might help you to build your product, or let's say to fine-tune what you're building.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Is there a rule of thumb for how much equity you should give up each round? Because I've heard 10%, I've heard 20%, I've heard some people say even 30%, other people just saying whatever you can get.
No. There is, of course, there is some certain statistics, because otherwise you will have, let's say, at the beginning, at pre-seed, it's usually 15%, 15 to 20, because that's your earliest days and that's your biggest supporters. That's your champions who believe in the team. The next fundraise, let's say seed round, should be around 10, 15%, Series A, because by the time you exit, which is Series B, they should be still
enough for it to make it worth you playing the game.
And also there is me coming from VC, our InsurTech New York, we are specialist VC. We invest in InsurTech startups, and that's what we do, right? And we also help them to build the product, to fine-tune the product, to get capacity, but because we are specialists. But sometimes I decline because cap table is non-investable, because they already lost a lot of money.
So what would be an uninvestable cap table?
The one I told you, for example,
50%
when she's 50% gone, there is not much. So at seed stage, it should be still a good 60. At seed stage, of course, the more founder has, the better. But of course, everyone understand. So let's say 15 to 20% at pre-seed, 15% at seed. So when you reach a Series A, they should be still good. 50+% left.
Got it. Okay. And another question we got in, what kind of characteristics from founders does an investor really look at? What's the most important characteristics that you look at from a founder as opposed to from the company themselves? Is there something that, because often in those early days, you're really just judging the founder, off of how they act. Maybe it's their career, their CVs, what university they went to. Is there something you look for specifically?
It depends on the VC. It actually depends on angel investor you're talking at. And that's why I become an angel investor, to invest in people just like myself.
So that's true. People look for people like themselves.
Yeah. So for example, I'm from Asian background, women, diverse.
Yeah.
And I support, most of my portfolio companies are diverse immigrant founders, or let's say from different backgrounds, because I could relate to them more. And I think one of the characteristics, so firstly, people invest in people like themselves, and they try, and or they have a personal story why they support particular. Yeah. So there is funds which are specific to immigrant founders. There are funds which are specific to female founders. There are funds which are say we only want the PhDs, which are scientific. They are, you know. So there are funds for different founders, but I think again focused. Another secret is when you see, like for me, it was interesting how fast was the pitch deck.
How fast? Oh, how
was the pitch deck?
How quickly the pitch? How fast the pitch went?
How fast I received the pitch.
Oh, really?
So I would go to this event and then they will try to pitch me, and what I say, send me your pitch deck, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on how fast was.
So ideally, you want it as soon as possible.
Or within a day.
Okay, but if someone takes like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then you say they are not ready to fundraise yet.
Yeah, because they obviously started putting it together.
Yeah,
at that point.
Because and similar thing with founders submitting their, let's say, for the existing investors, reporting. Good founders have a good organizational skills. They will be, even though there is of course, everyone understands that in startups there's many things going around. You should have this kind of discipline, will be the word.
Yes, yeah.
To send this kind of investor updates at least once in a quarter.
Yeah.
It's a good discipline for founder, because the moment you get into bigger rounds and bigger VCs, you will have to have that kind of reports.
For sure.
But the earlier you start the discipline and keeping your housekeeping, let's say all the documents are very well archived. Another, like when I see the data room, I could see clearly how organized the founder is.
I might regret asking this question. Why did you invest into us?
I believed in what you're building. Because as I told you, you invest in what you know. So I knew the fintech. I had a friend who did Islamic banking. So before decision, I didn't go alone. I went with Syndicate, if you remember. Yes. We did with Syndicate. So they were all of us.
Starseed Angels. Shout out to Starseed Angels.
Yeah. And to my very good friend Luca, who is a founder of Starseed Angels. All of us were from fintech, from finance.
Yes.
And we believed in what you're building. We liked the team. We liked the traction. We liked the progress you were making. And for me, it was also a personal, like me, let's say, growing up from Muslim family, I thought it combines, and most of my investments they combine both.
The personal and the professional.
Yeah, it's a fintech or climate with heavy impact element. Because I want to invest something which will actually change society into a better place.
Well, maybe you can bring us to Kazakhstan. Inshallah.
One day, inshallah.
Fantastic. We're pretty much out of time now, Sokhiba, so.
And one more thing about the founder characteristic.
Yeah.
Be true to yourself. Okay? Because I know there is some stereotypes of how the founder should look like, and the females also trying to look like more like founder, like, I guess you should be true to yourself.
You mean like wearing like a Steve Jobs turtleneck or?
Yeah. Because that's the stereotype. Like they think that if I will look like co-founder, I will fundraise faster, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
But you should be true to yourself and true to your values and authentic, because that could be felt by investor. And that's a very important thing, because if there is no trust, there is no business.
That's a fantastic point to end on.
Yeah.
Sokhiba, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, and
we'll have to have you back soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to the Muslim Money Talk podcast. If you like what you heard, then please subscribe to Muslim Money Talk wherever you might have been listening to this. Give us a like and share it with someone who you think might be interested. It really, really helps us out. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, and see you next time.